For a long time, I thought grind size is the reason how fast a pour of a brew is flowing. Too fine and you will clog up the filter and it drains very slowly, and too coarse and the water falls through the coffee, no time to extract, and you're unextracted. But there is something nobody's talking about. The bottom shape of your dripper is really important for how fast your brew is flowing. And there's new equipment out there, regulators, to shape the bottom and to make it narrower, to control the time for extraction and to make the drawdown slower. But one thing really surprised me. A thing that is supposed to slow down your brew made the brew even faster. Let's look into it. So here's what I and probably you have to always done when the brew is too slow or too fast. And that's changing your grind size. When I saw a recipe online and I knew I had to hit like 2 minutes and 30 seconds or 3 minutes or 3 minutes and 30 seconds, I adjusted the grind size so I can hit this target recipe. But actually, when we're doing this, we are changing the full cup profile of the brew just by adjusting the grind size. Smaller particles will extract way faster and different flavors at different times than way coarser particles. So the grind size is really shaping a lot about the flavor, but the extraction time is a completely different variable that we can also control with paper, drippers, and pouring structures, but it's a different variable. And we have to consider that this is not the same thing, just changing the grind size for a longer extraction time or a shorter one. Now I got these regulators, and with those, I might be able to control the drawdown time without changing the grind size. So I can choose the grind size for the flavor and then adjust the drawdown time. This would be the theory behind those. Let's look at the bare numbers. I designed a testing that might tell me more how these regulators really work. I wanted to know how fast do they flow without a paper, without coffee. I wanted to know how fast they flow with a paper, but without coffee. And then I needed to test it, how it really behaves in the brew with a paper filter and with coffee. So I can see how different the drawdown times between the different brews really are. There's a big chance that YouTube will never show you my videos again. The algorithm is full of other creators. And if you like my videos about extraction theory, my journey to Brewers Cup 2027, and all the other coffee related stuff, make sure to subscribe. So hit the button. And now let's look into the real data of my testing. Okay, so the first test was just pouring 100 grams of water into the empty dripper. And the very first test was kind of funny because the hole in the dripper is so big that I was actually just pouring the water straight to the carafe without contact to the dripper. So I did put there a 0, it just falls through actually. But things started to get interesting with the inlays. The first inlay, the very big one, number 8, that's actually for a Hario switch connection. It takes 4 seconds to drain the water completely. In comparison, the number 4 regulator took 15 seconds and the number 2 regulator with the very small hole in there took 45 seconds to just drain the water when I put it into the dripper without paper, without coffee. But the next test was even more interesting. With paper in there, everything changed because the open bottom actually was slower than the first regulator. When I just used it without a regulator, it took 16 seconds to drain the water. With the number 8 switch, it took only 13 seconds, and we will talk about this in a minute. The number 4 regulator took 22 seconds to drain completely, and the number 2 regulator took 49 seconds. So I was already expecting with a paper filter, it will drain a little bit slower because this is resistance and it will take some time to make the water through the paper filter, I guess, right? But what was surprising is that the ridges in the regulator actually speed up the flow. This is what we can see in the first 2 tests, where like the open bottom is slower than the one with the number 8 regulator. The hole is way smaller in the number 8 regulator, but the ridges in the regulator support a faster flow of the water. I think it was Matt Winton who explained this once, I think together with Lance Hedrick in the video. Please check it out. I will put the link in the description down below so you can check it out as well. He was describing it like that the water needs some contact to flow. And these ridges, also in a V60 and in other drippers, support the water to flow faster. And it's not the gap that is supporting the flow, it's the single ridges that are actually in contact with the paper filter and where the water can flow down. So I guess I already knew what results I will find when I start brewing with these regulators, but actually brewing into these regulators was quite different than I expected it. The drawdown time was not at all where I thought I will end up. Now, for the first brewing test, I chose a 3-pour structure. I was using 14 grams of coffee, and then I was doing a 50-gram pour for the bloom. I was letting it sit for 40 seconds. After that, another 50 grams, like a second bloom or a first real pour of 50 grams again. And then I did a big 100-gram bloom at 1 minute and 10 seconds. And I thought this bigger pour at the end will show me the difference in drawdown time, because the first one should flow quite fast with a big hole, and the last one with a small hole will take way longer. And I wanted to see the time difference. But what was surprising to me is that I ended up with more or less the same extraction time, drawdown time. It was not even really getting longer. With the number 8 switch regulator, I had a drawdown of 1 minute and 50 seconds. With the number 4 regulator, the medium version, I had 1 minute and 45 seconds. And with the last one, the number 2, with the smallest tiny little hole in there, I had 1 minute and 43 seconds. So I was confused. This is not really reliable data. And actually the brews tasted very, very similar. I believe there might be some differences in my pouring technique, so I was maybe pouring faster in one or the other brew. I can't really tell you at this moment, but I thought, okay, I need to test this again. Something went wrong. So I decided the next day to test it again, but this time to use the same dripper, because I was using the Baby 01, the 02, and the V4, and I thought maybe this will also change how fast it flows, how it extracts. So I was choosing now to make the same test, but one brew at a time. And I was using the O2 dripper. And shockingly, I had the same results. This time I also decided to do a brew without a regulator too, because I wanted to see how different the flow is. And more or less, I was again at the same drawdown time. I also changed the recipe. I thought maybe it's easier to do just 2 pours, so I can reduce the variability between my pours and to make it more even. It didn't happen. So this is where I'm still very confused. I had a drawdown without a regulator of 1 minute and 53 seconds. With the number 8 switch regulator, I had 1 minute and 47 seconds, a little bit faster. This I expected. Then with the number 4, I had 1 minute and 52 seconds, a little bit longer. This is also what I expected. And then I had again 1 minute and 52 seconds with a very small tiny hole. And I was quite confused. Why is that? Okay, before we dive into the conclusion about these products, the regulators, if slowing down the flow really works and what it's good for, I want to share something different. It's this coffee. I have it from my all-time favorite roaster, Coffee Circular, and I was using actually the very small regulator, the number 2, for making a brew with it the very first time. I brewed this one a lot of times before. It's a very beautiful Colombia washed coffee. It tastes like honey, camille. It has some fruit in there like apricot as well, orange and yellow apple. And it's very nice feeling on the tongue. It's a little heavier, like syrup, like honey. And I enjoyed this coffee a lot. And this was the best brew I had with this coffee yet, was with this regulator and the flat bottom dripper. And I have a theory why that happened. With this regulator, with the small hole, the coffee comes out into the carafe in a very single thin stream. And this is hitting my carafe at the bottom where it's like shaped like this, and it catches the stream perfectly, breaks it up, and it does not splash anywhere. This leads me to another theory that we haven't discussed here yet. It's about aromatic volatile compounds. I'm not sure if I'm even pronouncing it correctly, but it's about how aromatics are spreading in a server, in a carafe, and in a cup. And it's a very important part about the sensory experience of your coffee. If these compounds are leaving the server very early, like the smell of the coffee, if it's leaving very fast, then you won't smell and taste that much later when you take the first sip. So this is very important, and I think this really helped with this one brew. But this is not science. This is only one brew, a reference that I noticed. and it has nothing to do with the testing we're discussing here. But I thought it's interesting to tell you about this one brew because it was this morning and it was really incredible. So now, as I'm very confused with the data I collected with brewing with these devices, I'm not sure what to do with it. I would be very interested in your experience. On the sales page of these products, it says that there should be around 15-second drawdown difference within each of these regulators. So I was expecting at least 30 seconds difference between the very big one and the small one, but I didn't have it. I believe that it might have something to do with my grind size. I'm grinding quite coarse for my pour overs. Maybe I have to grind way finer to see the difference in the drawdown. I'm not quite sure about this. What is your experience? Have you done similar testings? Can you confirm my testings? Or do you have a completely different experience? But please let me know in the comments down below, what are your thoughts about it? For me, the most interesting thing as a next step would be a regulator that can shift its size so I can see what happens when I go really small and really big and change it mid-brew so I can control the flow when I'm brewing. I'm not sure if anyone has developed something like this before. I only know the switch and like hybrid immersion brewers where you can turn it on or off, but what's with the part in the middle between? This is all about like this middle part between on and off. How can you regulate your brew, your drawdown, the flow rate? This would be so interesting to test for me. If you know a dripper that has the function for a different flow regulation, this would be really interesting. Also drop it in the comments down below. At this point, I'm very sorry. I don't have a clear answer yet how this flow control in pour over brewing really works. But this is actually what this account is about. With Yellow Brews, I want to learn in public. I want to share my experiments that I'm doing, the data I'm collecting, and the things that I'm doing. And I can challenge it with you in the comments down below. Please share your experience so we can learn together. And with this account, I'm on the journey to becoming the best brewer I can to understand extraction better and also preparing for Brewers Cup 2027. So if you want to stay on track with what I learn, I will share everything here. Hit the subscribe button, and I'm so looking forward to see you guys in the next video. Bye.